Hey friends, Pastor John Brayland here. Today I am speaking to you from the Waconia United Food Shelf. At Freshwater, we are committed to helping our community be a better place and to be a thriving place. So we want to help people physically, emotionally, spiritually, and relationally. And we have done that certainly through our participation and engagement with the Waconia United Food Shelf. But not only do we want to take care of people's physical needs and to help them with food, we want to help them on other levels. And we're doing this new series called Managing Me, because the hardest person to manage is you. That's right. Not the person on your left, not the person on your right, not your kids, not your employees, not your staff, not even your dog. The hardest person in the world to manage is you. And here's the catch. You're the only one that can manage yourself. In this series, we're going to be covering 3 specific things in relation to managing yourself. We're going to talk about managing your emotional health, managing your spiritual health, and managing your relational health. And all 3 of those are very, very important areas. And hopefully by the end of the series, you're going to be able to assess where you're at when it comes to managing yourself and how you're doing, how you're managing your own emotions, how you're managing your spiritual life, and how you're managing your relationships. Well, COVID has been incredibly difficult on people. And like I said, we want to meet their physical needs by food and clothing and shelter and furniture and things like that. But we also want to help people on an emotional level. Because what I read in some of the articles, even just this week, is that people have been suffering on an emotional level. It's absolutely incredible. In fact, according to the Mental Health Association, they reported that in June of 2020, anxiety screenings were up 406% compared to January of the same year. And depression screenings were up 450% more in June and July than they were of January of the same year. And I also read that the greatest group that's been impacted on an emotional level is the age group between 18 and 25. Many people have said that our seniors are the ones that are suffering. Yes, I would agree. But according to statistics, the greatest mental health challenges are for people in the age bracket of 18 to 25. Yes, everybody's been affected, but that group, for some reason, seems to have been affected more. And I understand what stress feels like. I understand what it feels like to have emotional struggles and emotional challenges and trying to deal with all of the variables in life, from finances to family to how we run our own life to COVID to politics. I mean, all of that stuff. I get it. Years ago, this is a long time ago, I was so stressed out in my life that I had to wear a mouth guard at night because it was grinding my teeth so bad. I woke up, my face just hurt. And I didn't realize what it was from. But the doctor said, man, this is from stress in your life. And yes, I prayed about it. And yes, I gave it to God. But I was just stressed. And I had to actually learn some new techniques, some tools in my toolbox that would help me manage stress better. Jesus wants you to live a full life. He doesn't want you to live a stressed life, an anxious life, a depressed life. He wants you to live life to the full. In fact, in John 10:10, Jesus says this: the thief's purpose is to steal and kill and destroy. The thief here is Satan. He wants to destroy your life. Jesus says, my purpose is to give them a rich and satisfying life. It's to give you a rich and satisfying life. So how do you manage your own emotional health? How do you do that? Well, there's 6 practices that I want to talk about today, and maybe some of them will pertain to you and maybe others will not, but overall, it'll help you to make sure to kind of check your engine when it comes to your own emotional health. So let's just kind of go through those one at a time and see where you fall in this. And if you have hey, this strikes home, you can go ahead and type it in well, that's truth, or that affects me the most, or whatever you want to put. Just throw your comments in there and be happy to just, we'll have a little bit of online dialogue in relation to it. So how to manage your emotional health. First is to learn your rhythms, all right? That's key. Learn your rhythms. I hear people talking all the time about, I'm going to live a balanced life. Well, I am such not a fan of that because I don't think it's possible to live a balanced life. Balanced meaning sleep 8 hours, work 8 hours, play 8 hours, eat perfectly balanced, pH balanced meals and all that stuff. I just think that's setting people up for failure. So what I think that people need to do is learn how to live their life in a rhythm. Big advocate of this in its rhythm. Listen to the wisdom of Solomon. In Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 through 8, this is what Solomon writes. There's a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. Solomon here is speaking about rhythm, not balance. There's a huge difference between the two, rhythm and balance. So I am an advocate that we need to find our rhythm in life and not necessarily find this balance. So let me unpack this so that it makes sense. There's two types of time that you and I live by. Okay, there's two types of time, and they're very specific, and both are incredibly important. There's chronos time and there's kairos time. Chronos time and kairos time. Chronos is chronological time, just like this calendar. Chronological. Dates, times, there's 24 hours in every day. There's 7 days in a week. There's a certain number of days every month. Chronos time, chronological. It's clock and calendar time. You mark it on your calendar. 4th of July is always on the 4th of July. Christmas is always on December 25th. I mean, these are big dates for us. Your birthday is always on the same day. That's chronos time, chronological time. We set our calendars by it. We run our lives by it, our schedules. But that's only one specific portion of time. Solomon says this, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot. He's talking about chronological time. And yes, we need to understand that. So that's part of our rhythm. It's learning our life rhythms. It's chronological time. But then there's also what's called kairos time. Kairos time is more like this. Yeah, this is a crazy line, isn't it? But this is kairos time. This is experienced time, all right? Experienced time. One is chronos, chronological time. The other one is experienced time. For example, you have your college years. That's experienced time. You don't start it when you're 18 and finish when you're 22. You might start it when you're 19, 20, 21, 22, or go to trade school or go in the military or whatever. But you could experience that season of life. Adolescence is experienced time. Young adulthood is experienced time. And as a parent with young children, that's experienced time. Some adults have young children when they're in their 20s. Others have them when they're in their 40s. So it's all this experienced time. There are seasons in life when you're going to be really busy and you're going to be running like crazy. If you have little kids at home, you are busy changing diapers, chasing kids, everything else. If you have teenagers, it's a different season of life. Or if you're an empty nester, again, it's another different season of life. That's kairos time. It's experienced time. And sometimes you need to rest, and sometimes you need to run. You can't necessarily mark that on your calendar, but you just know it in your heart. And you have to learn your life rhythms. You want to stay emotionally healthy, you have to understand your life rhythms. For example, maybe when it's sunny outside, you're far more active, or when it's cloudy outside, you're less active. So you need to plan around that, or maybe plan some vacations when it's going to be cloudy and short days like in the winter. You need to, and even in COVID, maybe you need to drive somewhere south, or in the summer, you can plan those housing projects or whatever you're doing, or home improvement projects. I don't know, but just think of that in kairos time and chronos time. And Solomon mentions kairos time in verse 4 when he says, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. You don't know when those dates are going to come, but when they do, you will experience that time of grief, or you will experience that time of joy. That's kairos time. You will be the happiest and the most fulfilled in your life, especially on an emotional level, if you understand your rhythms, when you can run, when you need to walk, and when you need to rest. All right? So yes, you can go ahead and plan your calendars, but you also need to understand there's seasons of life. So you'll be the happiest and most fulfilled when you understand your rhythm. Second is this: stay connected to God. When you stay connected to God, it's going to help you to stay emotionally grounded. Emotionally grounded. In fact, oftentimes when people get disenfranchised with God, or they don't even know who God is in the first place, they don't feel connected to God, and they lose their basis. People start to get all caught up in politics. They get all caught up in this and that and the other thing because they've lost their connection to God. Ultimately, God is the one that's in charge. God is still on his throne, even in COVID, even in elections, even in times of rioting and turmoil. God is still on his throne. And the single greatest thing that you can do to manage your emotional health is to stay connected to God. One technique that my friend told me a couple of years ago when I was dealing with some stress and anxiety in my own life, he said, "Have you ever paused?" And I'm like, what do you mean paused? Like what? Paused? What are you talking about? Pause. He goes, pausing is this. It's sitting down in a chair and just being fully present in the moment, being aware of your breathing, being aware of how you're feeling. And it's also an opportunity for you to just talk to God, or to look outside and to just be present in the moment, and maybe to be thankful to God. But it's this connection where you can do this Christian meditation where you can either think on a verse, but be fully present in the moment, not looking at your phone, not doing other things, just pausing and being still. The first time I did it, I sat there and I had read a Bible verse. I can't remember what verse it was, and I was just kind of meditating on it, thinking about what God said in his word, and I was thinking about it and sitting still and being aware of my breathing, and it felt like 30 minutes, and I looked at the clock and only 3 minutes had passed because I'm not used to pausing. I'm not used to pausing. So I was able to pause and connect with God. And I still have a chair in my house that I like to sit in and look outside as I just pause and reflect. Even Solomon in Ecclesiastes 3, he's reflecting. He's pausing. He's just dwelling on God's truth, thinking about the rhythms of life. Third is invest in life-giving relationships. We're going to talk more about this in a couple of weeks, but you need to invest in life-giving relationships that are important. My life-giving relationship starts with my immediate family, my wife and kids. I want to have a good relationship with them because they fill my tank. They make me feel full. And then it goes out and is extended to several close friends. I have close friends. I need close friends that support me. So you need close friends too. Everybody needs what we call refrigerator friends. You know what a refrigerator friend is? A refrigerator friend is someone who knows you so well that when they come over to your house, they'll just go in the fridge and get what they need. They don't even really ask you. Most of the time, a refrigerator friend won't even knock on your door. They'll just look at you, or they'll just walk right in, sit down, and your home is their home, and their home is your home. These are refrigerator friends. Jesus had refrigerator friends. I mean, if they had refrigerators back then. But he had people that he was really close to. We look at Peter, James, and John. These guys were with Jesus more than any of the other apostles, more than any of the other disciples. These three guys were with him. In fact, in Mark 9:2, when Jesus went up the mountain, he transformed so they were able to see him glorified, like with their own eyes. And he revealed himself, who he was, that he is God, to these three guys first. It says, after 6 days, Jesus took Peter, James, and John with him and led them up a high mountain where they were all alone. There he was transfigured before him. You can have a zillion acquaintances. You can have tons of people that you know on Instagram or Facebook or any of the other social media platforms. But in all reality, you're probably going to have very few friends. Lots of acquaintances, but very few friends. These are people who know you. They know your heart. You know their heart. But everybody needs life-giving relationships because it helps you to stay mentally healthy. It helps you to stay mentally healthy. And I get it. It can be really hard to open up on an emotional level with other people. But you need to. You need to let them know what's going on in your mind, because if something's, you're not feeling right, they can call you out on it in a loving and gentle way. And they can be there. They can assure you that God is still in control. And fourth is enjoy ample recreation. In Acts chapter 2, verse 46, it says this: every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts. For these people back in the day, this was a form of recreation for them. They got together in each other's homes. They broke bread. They ate together. And many of their houses were set up in such that there was a courtyard in the center. So they would get together and they would talk about life and they would just do life together in these courtyard areas. You need to enjoy ample recreation as well. For years, I was a workaholic. I readily confess that. I worked way too many hours and it was not healthy for me. And maybe you're like me. You think you're the exception. I can do whatever I want. I can work as long as I want. Working gives me energy, da, 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 da. Well, it might be true now, but it's not always going to be true. Because there will come a breaking point in your life when you realize that you've worked too much or you've sacrificed too much for your career, for whatever else, and you've neglected the very people that you love the most. So I'm just saying, find a rhythm in your work life. Make sure that you enjoy ample recreation. Spend time on vacations. I mean, this whole COVID fiasco has done an amazing thing in our country. A friend of mine owns a motorsports business, and he said, man, people are buying motorsports like crazy. Snowmobiles, four-wheelers, side-by-side, personal watercraft, because families are doing things together. Tenting gear, RVs, it's cool. And I hope that you're in that category, that you are starting to do things that are different than what you did before, that you're learning in this season. Oh, wait. I don't have to run around every moment of every day hauling my kids here and there and doing this and that and going out here and going back here. That you can actually do things together. You can have some life-giving relationships and you can also enjoy ample recreation. So what fills you up? Go ahead and type it in. What fills you up? Is it watching movies? Going out to eat? Hopefully we can do that pretty soon. Is it spending time with friends? Is it going hiking, going camping? If so, where? Just go ahead and let me know. And then 5 is this. Care for your physical body. Care for your physical body. Because your physical body, the shape that you are in, has a huge impact on your emotional health. Trust me, I know this firsthand. I know that when I exercise, when I work out, when I move my muscles and all that stuff, that when I do that, I'm emotionally healthier. I'm more content in life. In fact, I've learned even this week that my dogs, they're just a basket, and I have 3 dogs now. I've got Stella, Buddy, and Hunter. Hunter's super old. He's like 1,000,000 years old, and then Buddy's 3 years old, and Stella's 6 months. But when they don't get exercise, they just get goofy. They're squirrely. They chew on my remotes and shoes and get into all kinds of trouble. But if I walk them, they're generally good dogs, and they'll rest and not be obnoxious. Well, tons of obnoxious. And I started thinking, maybe I'm the same way. If I don't get my exercise, maybe I'm a little bit obnoxious. I'm not mentally, as astute as I should be because I'm not simply getting the physical exercise that I need. Well, you need physical exercise too. Something is better than nothing. So even in this COVID season, figure out some way to exercise your body. 3 John 1:2 says this: Dear friend, I pray that you may enjoy good health and that all may go well with you, even as your soul is getting along well. So he's saying, hey, I hope that you enjoy good health. And we know that your physical health is directly affects your emotional health. So do the best you can to stay caring for your physical body. And then number 6 is get financially healthy. Yes, I said financially healthy. You're like, what does that have to do with my emotional health? Actually, a ton of it. Think about it. When you have money in the bank or you have money in your pocket, your mood is probably a little bit better. If you have no money in the bank or no money in your pocket, you're probably a little bit more stressed out. Now, during this COVID season, we've seen a unique thing happening. Some people are actually doing financially better. They're not going out to eat as much. They're not spending as much money on their kids' sports, equipment, travel, hotels, gas. People aren't driving to work like they were, stopping at Starbucks, getting that $7 Chicachino. They're not doing all that stuff. And by the way, a Chicachino is anything that's not just black coffee. So that's what I call a foo-foo drink. But anyways, they're not spending that money. And a lot of people are staying at home now. In fact, Keurig sales have just skyrocketed up. They're up 33% since COVID started because people are staying home. And even though Keurigs are incredibly expensive, they're still cheaper than spending money on all that latte and chicachino stuff. So get financially healthy. And other people have actually seen economic downturn in their lives. They've been laid off, furloughed, whatever, and it's caused a lot of stress. I've talked to a lot of people, maybe you're one of them, that is stressed out financially now, and you're not really sure where your next meal is going to come from. Well, by the way, you can certainly stop by the food shelf when we're open, and we'd love to serve you. But for you, things have gone not better, they've gone worse. Well, just keep this in mind then, and do whatever you can to stay or have the minimum amount of debt that you possibly can. And even now, just cut out expenses, whatever that may be. But get financially healthy. That has a lot to do with our emotional health. We underestimate this. We underestimate our emotional health and how it's tied to our finances. But when you think about it, your finances are directly tied to your emotional health. The Apostle Paul wrote this to the Ephesians. He says, be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise. So live a wise life. And that involves a financially wise life as well. Making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil. That's what Paul says. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. God certainly does not want you to be buried by debt. He does not want you to be crushed by financial ruin. In fact, he knows that when you are under financial pressure, that it puts a huge strain on your emotions. So, the hardest person in the world to manage is you. But now you have some tools to help manage your own emotional health, to help you stay emotionally strong. And in this season, as we're coming into the thick of the winter months, yeah, it's been a great fall, it's been all this and all wonderful, but now we're kind of in the trenches of the winter in Minnesota. We call this this is the lull. Like, what do we have to look forward to besides Easter or spring or Valentine's Day or one of the other Hallmark holidays? You get what I'm saying. So now more than ever, you need to be emotionally strong. And you can do that when you learn how to manage your emotional life by talking about what we talked about. Your life in rhythm, understanding your own rhythm, understanding what it means to have healthy relationships and healthy financially, and caring for your physical body and ample recreation. All of those are important. All of those are important. And all of those are tied into your emotional health. So now it's your turn. You can get emotionally healthy. You can stay emotionally healthy. And you can live the life that God wants you to live. Yes, you're going to have problems. And yes, you will face obstacles. Jesus said to us that in this world, you will have troubles. That's why you need to stay emotionally strong. And you can do it. You have the tools, and you have a gracious and loving and awesome and incredible God and Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, who is in your corner and cheering for you. So with that being said, I want to pray for you. Heavenly Father, I pray for my friends. I ask God today that you will help them to stay strong on an emotional level. As we know, God, this whole COVID thing is exhausting. It's exacerbating. We're tired. We're frustrated. And God, it has, and I admit it's taken an emotional toll. Yet you are still on your throne, and we can still learn new things, and we can still walk in your ways. And God, we love you, and we give you all praise and all glory in Jesus' holy name. And everybody types in, Amen.